In exactly 1 week, I'm leaving the house, hopping on a plane, traveling around the world to Tokyo for the Japan Mobility Show. And Mazda has shown us a teaser of its upcoming concept of the MX-5 that it will be debuting for you. News is coming out from Top Gear talking about what this could be, what kind of powertrains we should expect from the MX-5. Let's get into it. Make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss my coverage of this MX-5 as well as all the other concepts from the other Japanese automakers like Lexus's full-on battery electric concept lineup. All right, so Mazda's powertrain development boss Kato Matsue told Top Gear that Mazda is actively weighing an electric MX-5 sports car. In some ways, it feels like it's inevitable based off of how the governments are forcing electrification. There's a big problem, and that is affordability as well as weight. I want to see if those things are addressed here in this article. Mazda says they will be electrified fully by the end of this decade. That doesn't mean battery electric. That's largely hybrids and plug-in hybrids. Mazda does not want to jump into the full battery electric wagon. And we'll talk more about that because we have another article here talking about some of their models we could expect here in the United States by 2025. Matsui goes on to say an electric MX-5 is a possibility, and the main markets are the United States, Europe, and Japan. Japan is a bit behind, he's saying, but the market demand is changing towards electrification, so we need to think about that. By 2030, he says all of our products will have some electrification, so that means a sports car is not outside the scope, but I can't say exactly when we'll introduce a battery on the MX-5 at this moment. He says, thinking about our development duration until 2030, 7 years is a short time. I don't expect power density to become 2 to 3 times better compared to the current power density, meaning in energy density and batteries, as I think is what he's referring to. And he's actually expecting better than 2 to 3 times power density, but it's not going to happen by 2030. And he says we don't want a very heavy MX-5. So if the MX-5 is 1.5 tons of peak weight, that is not the MX-5. What I can say is the MX-5 is our symbol. If the MX-5 becomes a battery EV, that battery EV should have very special characteristics. Jinba Itai feeling, which is kind of like horse and rider feeling, human-centric of our basic concept philosophies. That's our hope. Apparently, the MX-5 is doing great in Japan. It had a record 2021 and 2022. And Matsue was surprised because not only is it an aging platform, and we just got the ND3 refresh for 2024, but he's surprised that the customers have changed their mind to get inside of an enjoyable car. When asked about the RX-7, Matsue said, I still have an RX-7 in Japan, and I really love it. He says, I would expect that kind of super sports car eventually, but after the midterm plan. So Mazda wants to bring back a Halo sports car. Holy smokes. We've been wanting it ever since the cancellation of the RX-8, and some of us have been waiting since the RX-7 because RX-8 wasn't as good as the RX-7 in a lot of ways. And just to reiterate, he says, I would expect that kind of super sports car eventually. So it's going to come, but probably after the... So he says after the midterm plan. The midterm plan, I believe, is from 2025 to 2027. So we could see it as early as 2028, I would say, to 2030. We might see an insane high-performance Mazda once again. So I'll see you guys down below. Do you want a battery electric MX-5? The only way I would want one is if it has some sort of like second or third generation solid state battery where the weight is really low, energy density is super high in those batteries. So we have a very lightweight, flickable, and very satisfying small sports car. No manual transmission, though, is half the soul of the Miata. The other half is, well, gosh, there's so many things that make it special with its lightweight, its drop top, and just how small it is. So if we can keep drop top, lightweight, and its tiny nature and lose the manual transmission. I have more of a connection to the manual transmission than I do like the 4-cylinder engines in the car because the manual is just so good and the power to weight ratio is so good in it. It just feels very balanced car. Obviously, that's why it's so successful to this day. It's one of the best selling sports cars ever. So it's got to be special if it goes battery electric. Let me know down below what kind of requirements you would need from it in terms of weight, range, acceleration. Would you want all-wheel drive? I don't think I would. I think I would want true torque vectoring, so dual motors in the back. one for each wheel. So that's what I would like to see, but it's a long ways out, guys. We're probably, I would say, at least to 2030 before we see a battery electric MX-5 because, okay, well, the ND3 is going to extend the next 3 years probably before we get a redesign, which the concept that we see in a week or week and a half or whatever could be the car that we see in 3 or 4 years from now. But I don't think it's going to be battery electric because we're not going to see that energy density in order to make the case for a lightweight MX-5 in just 3 to 4 years. So it's probably going to be a hybrid. More than likely, that would be my guess. They want to be fully electrified by 2030. So mild hybrid is the minimum, and then full on like strong hybrid would be a second, or maybe even a plug-in hybrid, but that would be really, really strange. I wouldn't want that because that's going to add a lot of weight to the MX-5 with our current batteries. So mild hybrid would be my guess. And we're going to move on. Over at Nikkei Asia, Mazda to sell EVs in US as soon as 2025. And that's, of course, not counting the MX-30 that was just discontinued for our market. What, it sold here for a year, maybe 2 years tops with 100 miles of range. The thing never should have been brought out because it didn't do anything for the brand. I'll say that much. The new CX-90 plug-in hybrid, on the other hand, is completely different, and that's a much more desirable product. But we will get potentially 2 new battery electric vehicles from Mazda as early as 2025. And these new EVs will utilize the platforms of existing gasoline-powered vehicles. BMW is doing this to much success. Toyota is doing this to not very much success. So it can be done successfully, and I would expect Mazda to do that pretty well here. Okay, these are going to be built in Hofu in Japan. The plant can produce various types of cars, gasoline, electric, and hybrid on the same line. Now, they haven't said what type of vehicles, but it sounds like it is going to be SUVs. I think Hofu is actually where like the CX-90 is built. So I think it would make sense at this point to have maybe a battery electric version of the CX-90 and the CX-70. And they say it's hard to make money on small EVs given the high cost of producing automobiles. Mazda chief executive Masahiro Moro said, but they're also looking at a segment that will appeal to would-be EV buyers. And since these will be built in Japan, they will not qualify for the EV tax credit, but if you lease them, that's the loophole where you can get that $7,500 baked in to lower your payment. And this is completely unrelated, but I didn't know how I was going to make a video for this. But the 2024 Corolla range is getting some improvements over in Europe. It is their best-selling car lineup for Toyota in the European region. And we have this new color. It's called Super Green Metallic. And they have a picture for us in the hatchback as well as the Corolla Touring Sports, which this is one of the many Toyotas, I should say, that I wish we got in the United States. This is one of the most desirable. I would take this over a Prius any day of the week. It has the Prius drivetrain in here, not the Prime. So just standard 2-liter hybrid, but 196 horsepower. You can get dual motor all-wheel drive on this. This would be incredible. I'd pick this, like I said, over Prius every single time if it was available in the United States. Let me know down below if you would pick this over Prius if it was available here. But in Europe, they're getting the digital smart key for this Corolla. And they're also getting the new Nano X air purification technology. And don't forget, they also have a GR Sport model of that Corolla Sports Touring. And I think they have one of the hatchback too. We just have the GR Corolla, which is, I'm not going to complain about that. Everywhere else uses GR Sport, and it's TRD only in America. But anyways, I'm getting it there. Thank you guys for watching. I'm so excited to see all the new concepts in Japan, and I'm excited to see your comments down below on the upcoming MX-5. How do you think they're going to electrify it? Because I think it's inevitable at this point for the next generation. But battery electric seems to be off the table, and I know that's a sigh of relief for a lot of you guys who don't want a heavy MX-5 in the near future. We want a lightweight one with future battery technology that is just not developed quite yet. All right, thanks guys. Have a great day and peace.